The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched wider than 3 football fields. Tall windows of crystal-like material let in light from the 3 suns of Nexus Prime. 247 alien species had representatives seated in tiered rows that curved around a central speaking platform. John Miller adjusted his plain black suit and straightened his tie. As Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, he represented the newest species admitted to the galactic community. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. In the eyes of the Council, they were babies, newcomers who should be grateful for a seat at the table. Miller stepped onto the speaking platform. The universal translator at his throat would convert his words into the 22 major languages used in council meetings. He cleared his throat. The small action echoed through the chamber. Conversations quieted as attention turned to the human. Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Council, Miller began, his voice steady and calm. I come before you today with a message from the United Earth government. Several council members weren't even looking at him. The Dravik's ambassador was checking something on his datapad. The Heth-Zer delegation appeared to be sleeping. Humans weren't important enough to command full attention. Miller continued. After careful consideration, and by unanimous vote of Earth's Global Senate, I am instructed to deliver the following message. He paused, looking around the room. More eyes turned to him now, perhaps sensing something unusual in his tone. As of this moment, Earth and all human colonies formally declare a state of war against the Galactic Council and its founding members. For 3 seconds, perfect silence filled the chamber. Then chaos erupted. The Xaraxian ambassador, a tall blue-skinned being with 4 arms, rose to his full height. This is absurd. The human must be malfunctioning. The Pellerin representative, whose species resembled giant jellyfish floating in anti-gravity tanks, flashed angry red patterns across her translucent body. Is this some form of humor? Do humans think war is a joke? Miller stood calmly as shouts and questions flew across the chamber. The council's Grand Minister, an ancient Volari with gray scales and wise eyes, activated his priority channel that overrode all other speakers. Ambassador Miller, the Grand Minister said, surely there is some mistake. Humanity's military capacity is, he searched for a diplomatic word, developing. A war against the combined might of the Council would be. Again he paused. Unfortunate for Earth. Everyone knew what he meant. Humanity would be crushed. Miller looked directly at the Grand Minister. There is no mistake. Earth has evidence of Council violations that justify our action. The declaration stands. The Xaraxian ambassador pushed his way to the front. What violations? This is nonsense. The human government cannot possibly believe they can challenge us. Miller didn't answer. Instead, he gathered his small datapad and stepped down from the platform. Ambassador Miller, you cannot make such a declaration and simply leave, called the Grand Minister. Protocol demands. We are at war, Miller said simply. Diplomatic protocols no longer apply. He walked toward the exit, his back straight. Security guards moved uncertainly, looking to their superiors for instructions. No one had ever declared war in the council chamber before. There was no procedure for this. As Miller reached the large doorway, the Xaraxian shouted, your species will regret this foolishness. We will turn your homeworld to ash. Miller didn't turn around. The doors slid closed behind him. In the private diplomatic shuttle bay, Miller's assistant Frank Lee waited with their ship ready. Is it done? Lee asked. Miller nodded. Phase 1 is complete. He tapped his secure communicator, connecting directly to Earth Command, 50 light-years away. This is Ambassador Miller. Message delivered exactly as instructed. Reaction was as predicted. We are returning to Earth now. The voice from Earth Command was calm. Understood, Ambassador. Well done. Safe journey home. Phase 2 begins in 6 hours. As their shuttle broke orbit from Nexus Prime, Miller watched the Council planet grow smaller through the viewport. Somewhere down there, 247 species were trying to understand why humanity had just signed its own death warrant. But they didn't know what humans knew. And by the time they figured it out, everything would change. 3 weeks earlier, the research vessel U.S. Horizon drifted silently through the emptiness of Sector 87. This area was considered neutral space, far from the busy trade routes and populated systems of the Galactic Council. Captain Elizabeth Warren stood on the bridge, her blue uniform crisp and neat. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. The Horizon's mission was simple: study star formations and collect data on developing planets. "Captain, I'm picking up unusual energy readings," said Lisa Cooper, the ship's science officer. Her fingers moved quickly over the glowing control panel. "It's coming from the 4th planet in the system ahead." Warren moved to stand behind Cooper. "What kind of readings?" "It looks like." Cooper's voice trailed off. "Ma'am, these match patterns of large-scale biological weapons." The bridge went quiet. Biological weapons were banned by the Galactic Council over 3,000 years ago. All member species had signed treaties promising never to develop or use such terrible weapons. "Are you certain?" Warren asked. Cooper nodded. "The computer confirms it. Someone is testing biological agents on the planet's surface." Warren made a quick decision. "Take us closer, but keep our shields up and stay in stealth mode." The Horizon moved slowly toward the small green planet. It was home to a pre-spaceflight civilization, humanoids who had just discovered electricity and basic medicine. As they entered orbit, the ship's sensors captured clear images of what was happening below. Large areas of forest were dying. Cities had been emptied, and ships bearing the markings of the Thraxian Empire hovered over several test sites. "Record everything," Warren ordered. "We need solid proof." For 6 hours, the Horizon collected data. They documented Thraxian scientists in protective gear releasing airborne particles over villages. They recorded conversations between the Thraxian ships. It was clear this wasn't a one-time event. The Thraxians had been using this planet as a testing ground for new biological weapons for years. "This is a direct violation of Council law," said First Officer Ben Martinez. "The Thraxians are founding members of the Council. They helped write those laws." Warren's face was grim. "And they're breaking them when it suits them. We need to report this immediately." Just as she gave the order to prepare a transmission to Earth Command, alarms blared across the bridge. "Captain, 3 Thraxian warships just appeared from behind the moon," shouted the tactical officer. "They're moving toward us fast." "How did they detect us?" Warren asked. "They must have sensors we don't know about," Martinez said. "Our stealth technology should have hidden us from anything the Council has." Warren didn't hesitate. "Shields to maximum. Prepare to jump to light speed." But before they could escape, the first shots hit the Horizon. The ship shook violently. "They didn't even hail us," Warren said in disbelief. "No warning." Another blast hit them, more powerful than the first. Panels exploded on the bridge. Emergency lights flashed red. "Engine core damaged," called the engineering officer. "We can't jump." Warren knew they were outmatched. The Horizon was a research vessel, not a warship. They had only basic weapons for defense. "Send all our data to Earth now," she ordered. "Priority transmission. Everything we recorded." As the Thraxian ships closed in, Warren stood tall on her damaged bridge. "This is Captain Elizabeth Warren of the Earth vessel U.S. Horizon." She broadcast on open channels. "We are a peaceful research ship in neutral space. Your attack is unprovoked and illegal under Council law." The only response was another barrage of weapons fire. The Horizon's shields failed. "Transmission complete," Cooper called out. "Earth received our data package." Warren nodded, relief crossing her face for just a moment. Then the final attack came. Back on Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Pentagon, military leaders watched in horror as the U.S. Horizon exploded into fragments. The transmission from Captain Warren had arrived just minutes before. The president looked at the evidence on the large screen. "Call an emergency meeting of the Joint Chiefs," he said quietly, "and contact Ambassador Miller on Nexus Prime." The decision that would shock the Galactic Council was about to be made. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that did not exist on any public map, Dr. Alan Nguyen stared at the holographic display, showing the destruction of the U.S. horizon. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his glasses. 57 good people had been on that ship, people he had known and worked with. "We knew this day might come," said General Susan Martinez. She stood next to him, her uniform decorated with medals from wars fought only on Earth. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes burned with cold anger. Captain Warren did her duty. Now we do ours. They were standing in the central command room of Project Safeguard, a massive underground complex that stretched for miles beneath the mountains. For 50 years, ever since humans made first contact with the Galactic Council, this place had been preparing in secret. "Show me our readiness status," Martinez ordered. The holographic display changed, showing hundreds of ships hidden throughout the solar system. Some were concealed in asteroid belts. Others waited in underground bases on Mars, Europa, and Titan. All were far more advanced than anything humanity had ever shown to the Council. "Fleet is at 97% readiness," reported Commander Peter Grant, the General's aide. "The new dark jump drives have been installed in all major vessels." Martinez nodded. "And the Cyber Warfare Division? Ready to deploy on your order, ma'am." Dr. Nguyen moved to another console and entered his security code. A new display appeared, showing weapons systems that would shock most of humanity, let alone the aliens who thought Earth was a backward newcomer to galactic politics. "The Council thinks we're playing catch-up with technology that they gave us," Nguyen said. "They have no idea what we've actually built." General Martinez allowed herself a small smile. That was always the plan. From day one. 50 years ago, when the Council ships first arrived at Earth, they had offered limited technology sharing as a gift to the promising young species. What the aliens didn't know was that human scientists had immediately seen through their games. The tech they shared was centuries behind what they actually possessed. It was like giving a calculator to a college math professor and acting like it was a great gift. So humanity had played along. They acted grateful. They built ships using the outdated designs. They joined the Council and followed its rules. And all the while, Project Safeguard worked in secret, reverse engineering, and improving upon everything they could learn about true Council technology. "What about the defense systems?" Martinez asked. Commander Grant brought up a new display. "All planetary shield generators are operational. We can have full coverage within 15 minutes of activation order." Another officer spoke up. "General, we've received the final authorization codes from the President. Operation Daybreak is now active." Martinez nodded. "Send the signal to all fleet commanders. Phase 2 begins in 6 hours, coordinated with Ambassador Miller's return jump from Nexus Prime." Dr. Nguyen looked troubled. "Even with everything we've built, the Council outnumbers us. They have more ships, more resources, more worlds." "Numbers aren't everything," Martinez said. "They've grown soft, complacent. They think they're untouchable. And they've never faced humans before." She walked to the center of the room, where a large Earth emblem was set into the floor. "For 50 years, we've let them think we're weak. We've smiled and nodded while they fed us scraps. All the while, they've been exploiting and destroying developing worlds like that poor planet the Horizon found." Her voice hardened. "Now they'll learn what happens when you push humans too far." Across the solar system, in hidden bases and secret shipyards, men and women in uniforms began final preparations. Weapons were checked. Systems were tested. And on the bridges of ships more powerful than the Council could imagine, captains opened sealed orders and read their targets. Humanity had been preparing for this day since first contact. The Council thought they were declaring war on a primitive species that didn't know any better. They were wrong. Admiral Daniel Garcia stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Retribution, the largest warship humans had ever built. It was hidden inside the hollowed-out core of a small moon orbiting Saturn. No Council scans had ever detected it. "All systems ready, Admiral," reported his first officer, Kate Hill. "Dark jump drives are charged and waiting for your command." Garcia nodded. He was a tall man with dark eyes that had seen many battles on Earth. This would be his first in space. "Show me the fleet status." A large holographic display appeared in the center of the bridge. It showed 7 human fleets positioned throughout the solar system. Each was hidden from Council observation by technology developed by Dr. Olivia Patterson, the physicist who had created the dark jump drives. These drives were humanity's secret weapon. Council ships used standard jump technology that created bright energy flashes when entering or exiting jump space. These flashes could be detected by early warning systems, but Patterson's dark jump drives left no energy signature. They were completely invisible to Council sensors. "All fleet commanders report ready, sir," said Hill. "Awaiting your order." Garcia checked the time. Ambassador Miller's shuttle would be returning to Earth space in exactly 3 minutes. The declaration of war had been delivered. Now it was time for humanity to show its true strength. "Connect me to all ships," Garcia ordered. When the communication link was established, Garcia spoke clearly and calmly. "This is Admiral Garcia. For 50 years, humanity has prepared for this day. The Council believes we are weak. Today, they learn differently. Our targets are the 7 strategic locations identified in Operation Daybreak. Remember your training. Remember the U.S. horizon. Execute dark jumps on my mark." He paused, looking at the image of Earth displayed on his personal monitor. Then he said, "Mark." Throughout the solar system, human warships disappeared without a trace. No energy flashes, no warning signs. They simply vanished from normal space. At that same moment, in a secure facility beneath the Pentagon, Commander William Jackson led a team of cyber warfare specialists in their own attack. Their fingers flew over keyboards as they launched carefully crafted virus programs into the Council's communication networks. "Firewall breached," called out one specialist. "Inserting blackout virus now." Jackson nodded. "Activate all sleeper codes." For decades, human spies and hackers had been planting hidden programs in Council systems. Now those programs activated all at once. Council defense networks began to shut down. Communication systems failed. Navigation computers displayed false information. In Council space, the 7 human fleets appeared simultaneously at their targets. The First Fleet, led by Captain Laura Bennett, emerged near the Council's largest shipyard in the Proxima system. Before the surprised aliens could react, human ships fired new weapons that Council shields couldn't stop. The Second Fleet attacked the Council's central communication hub at Vega Prime. The Third targeted the main fuel production facility in the Sirius system. The other fleets struck at defense installations, weapon stockpiles, and military command centers. Each attack was precise, focused, and devastating. On Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world, the Grand Minister received alarming reports from all 7 locations at once. "Impossible," he shouted. "Humans don't have this technology. Their ships can't jump without detection." But the evidence was clear on the screens before him. Human warships were attacking throughout Council space, and they were winning. The Correction Ambassador burst into the Grand Minister's office. "What is happening? How did they bypass our early warning systems?" The Grand Minister had no answer. The humans they had dismissed as primitive were executing a coordinated attack that should have been impossible. Back on the Retribution, Admiral Garcia received the first reports. "All targets hit successfully," he announced to his crew. "Phase 2 is complete." He turned to his communications officer. "Signal Earth Command. Tell them to begin Phase 3. The real war had just begun. 2 weeks after the first human attacks, the Galactic Council chamber was no longer the orderly place it had once been. Many seats stood empty. Some species had stopped attending meetings altogether. Others had openly withdrawn from the Council. Ambassador Julia Reed sat in a private meeting room on the neutral space station Harmony Point. Unlike the Grand Council chamber, this room was small and plain. It had one round table with chairs for 6 people. Reed was the new human representative, appointed after Ambassador Miller returned to Earth. She was younger than Miller, with red hair and green eyes that missed nothing. 3 alien representatives sat across from her. "The evidence your people provided is disturbing," said Krell, the Tellurian ambassador. Tellurians looked like tall, thin humans with silver skin and large eyes. If the Council founding members truly did these things. They did, Reed said firmly. She touched a small device on the table. It projected images of the data recovered from the U.S. horizon. This is just one example. We have proof of 17 other cases where the Xeraxians and their allies destroyed developing civilizations or used them for experiments. Nara, the female representative from the Vasteri species, leaned forward. The patterns of light flowing across her translucent body showed her distress. "My people joined the Council only 70 years ago. We had no knowledge of these crimes." "We believe you," Reed said. "That's why I'm meeting with you, and not the older Council members. Your species, the Tellurians, the Vastari, and the Meridian Collective, all joined the Council within the last century. You weren't part of their secrets." The third alien, a round being named Orb who represented the Meridian Collective, spoke in a deep voice. "This morning, our 3 species formally declared our neutrality in this conflict. The full Council is furious." Reed smiled slightly. "We expected that. It's the first crack in their unity." "But your attacks continue," Krell said. "Just yesterday, human forces destroyed the main Xeraxian military base in the Rigel system." "Yes," Reed agreed. "And we will keep fighting until the Council's corruption is exposed to all species in the galaxy." She showed them more evidence. Secret Council records that human spies had collected over decades. They revealed how the founding members had manipulated newer species, stolen resources from developing worlds, and even caused extinction events when it suited their purposes. "For 50 years, humans pretended to be less advanced than we are," Reed explained. "We knew from our first contact that something was wrong with the Council. They shared outdated technology while keeping the best for themselves. They created rules that limited newer members while the founding species ignored those same rules." Nara's lights pulsed with anger. "They told us humans were primitive and potentially dangerous. They said you needed to be controlled for your own good. And now 3 Council fleets have been defeated by those same primitive humans," Orb added with what might have been a laugh. Outside the meeting room, the space station's alert system suddenly activated. Red lights flashed. A voice announced, "Warning, Xeraxian warships approaching. All neutral vessels should prepare for possible conflict." Reed checked her secure communicator. "Don't worry. The human fleet is near. We expected the Xeraxians might track our meeting." Krell looked nervous. "They will see this meeting as treason against the Council." "It's not treason to stand against corruption," Reed said. "Your 3 species are the first to break away. Others will follow as more evidence spreads." On her communicator, she saw a message from Earth Command. "Phase 3 proceeding as planned. Council fracturing accelerates." In the main Council chamber on Nexus Prime, the Xeraxian ambassador pounded his 4 fists on the table. "These humans must be destroyed completely, and any species that sides with them." But as he looked around the room, he saw doubt on many faces. Whispers spread among the representatives. Questions were being asked that had never been asked before. The Council was beginning to fracture from within. The space around Proxima Centauri was quiet. Too quiet. Supreme Fleet Commander Kevin Lawson knew this as he stood on the bridge of the human defense vessel Guardian. Proxima Centauri was the closest star system to Earth, just over 4 light-years away. If the Council wanted to attack humanity's home, they would come through here first. "Any sign of them yet?" Lawson asked his sensor officer, Jane Wilson. Wilson shook her head. "Nothing yet, sir. But our long-range scans show they've gathered over 300 ships. It's the largest battle fleet the Council has assembled in centuries. Lawson nodded. He was a tall man with gray hair and a scar across his left cheek from an old battle on Earth. Now he faced a much bigger fight. And they think we only have 20 ships defending this system. His second-in-command, Jack Rivers, smiled slightly. That's what they see on their scans. What the Council didn't know was that scattered throughout the asteroid belt of the Proxima system were 500 stealth mines and 200 automated weapon platforms. All were hidden by the same technology that made human jump drives invisible to Council sensors. And on the far side of Proxima Centauri's fourth planet was Dr. Samantha Collins with her greatest creation. Status report from the Proxima Defense Array, Lawson asked. Rivers checked his display. Dr. Collins reports all systems green. The array is fully charged and ready. The Proxima Defense Array looked like a normal research station to Council scans. In reality, it was the most powerful energy weapon humans had ever built. The Council would never see it coming. All ships maintain position, Lawson ordered. Remember, we need to let them get deep into the system before we spring the trap. 4 hours later, the first Council ships appeared at the edge of the system. They came out of jump space in a flash of bright energy. More and more ships followed, until the starscape was filled with Council vessels of all sizes. They've taken the bait, Rivers said quietly. The Council fleet moved forward slowly, their weapons ready. They expected an easy victory against the small human force they could detect. Lawson watched calmly as the enemy ships moved deeper into the system. Wait for it, he said to his crew. Wait. When the Council fleet reached the middle of the asteroid belt, Lawson gave the order. Activate all mines and platforms. Now, throughout the asteroid belt, hundreds of previously invisible devices suddenly powered up. The mines moved toward the nearest Council ships. The weapon platforms began firing high-energy beams. The Council fleet was caught by surprise. Explosions flashed as the first mines hit their targets. Council ships tried to return fire, but they couldn't find the small, fast-moving mines in time. Now it's our turn, Lawson said. All ships, attack pattern Delta. The 20 human vessels moved forward, firing weapons that cut through Council shields like they weren't even there. More Council ships exploded or drifted dead in space. But the Council had numbers on their side. They still had over 200 ships, even after the first wave of human attacks. They're regrouping, Wilson reported, forming a defensive formation. Lawson nodded. It's time. Signal Dr. Collins. On the far side of the fourth planet, Dr. Collins received the message. She was a short woman with determined eyes and steady hands. For 10 years, she had worked on the Proxima Defense Array. Now it was time to see if it worked. Activate the array, she ordered her team. Full power. The massive station hummed as energy built up in its core. A beam of pure white light shot out, so bright it looked like a new star being born. The beam cut through space toward the Council fleet. When it hit, 30 Council ships simply disappeared. The beam continued through them, hitting more ships behind them. In the command ship of the Council fleet, Admiral Zex of the Taraxian Empire watched in horror. What weapon is this? How can they have such technology? A junior officer responded, Sir, we must retreat. We must warn the Council. Zex hesitated, then gave the order. All ships, jump out of the system. Now. The remaining Council ships turned and fled, jumping away in bright flashes of energy. But not before the defense array hit 2 more groups of ships. When it was over, more than half the Council's grand fleet was destroyed. On the Guardian, Lawson allowed himself a small smile. Send word to Earth. The Battle of Proxima Centauri is won. But he knew the war was far from over. Lieutenant George Henderson checked his stealth suit one last time. The black material absorbed light and heat, making him nearly invisible to most sensors. His 5 team members wore the same suits as they prepared to board their small ship. Everyone clear on the mission? Henderson asked quietly. He was a man of medium height with steady hands and calm eyes. The team nodded. They were special operations, the best Earth had to offer. Their mission was the most dangerous of the war so far: infiltrate the Xeraxian home planet and break into the Council's central archive. "Remember, we need those historical records," Henderson said. "Earth intelligence believes they go back thousands of years and contain proof of everything the Council founding members have done." The team's tech specialist, Lily Martinez, patted the advanced computer equipment in her pack. "If it's in their system, I'll find it." Their ship was tiny by military standards, barely larger than an old Earth bus, but it was covered in the most advanced stealth technology humans had developed. It could slip past Xeraxian defenses undetected. 3 hours later, they were on approach to Xeraxis Prime. The planet was a swirling mass of blue-green clouds above dark continents. Heavy defenses surrounded it: warships, defense platforms, and sensor arrays. "Holding breath time," whispered the pilot, Andy Grant, as he guided their small craft between two massive Xeraxian battlecruisers. None of the defenses detected them. Their ship landed in a remote area 5 miles from the massive archive building. The team moved out on foot, keeping to shadows and avoiding patrols. The central archive was an enormous structure of gleaming metal and crystal. It held the complete history of the Galactic Council and all its members. "Security is heavy," observed Carol Harris, the team's combat specialist, as they watched from a hiding spot. 4 guard points before we reach the main storage room." Henderson nodded. "We stick to the plan. Non-lethal approaches where possible." Using their stealth suits and electric stunners, the team made it past the first 3 security checkpoints without raising alarms. They moved like ghosts through the huge building, following the path their intelligence officers had mapped out. At the 4th checkpoint, something went wrong. A sensor they hadn't known about detected their movement. Alarms blared throughout the building. "Move fast," Henderson ordered. "We might not get out, but we need to reach the main storage room." They ran now, no longer trying to stay hidden. Guards appeared at the end of a long hallway, firing energy weapons. Harris and another team member returned fire, covering the others. Finally, they reached the central storage room. It was a vast chamber filled with crystal data storage units, each containing centuries of Council records. "How much time do you need?" Henderson asked Martinez as she connected her equipment to the main system. 5 minutes to find it. Another 2 to download," she replied, her fingers flying over her computer. Outside the room, they could hear the sound of many guards approaching. "We'll buy you the time," Henderson said. He and the other team members took defensive positions at the door and windows. The Xeraxian guards attacked in force. Energy blasts filled the air. 2 of Henderson's team fell, badly wounded. "I found it," Martinez called out excitedly. "It's all here, thousands of years of records. They'd been doing this since the beginning, exploiting developing worlds, destroying any species that discovered the truth." "How many other species tried to stop them?" Henderson asked, firing his weapon to keep the guards back. Martinez looked up, her face pale. 5. 5 other species discovered what they were doing and tried to expose them. All 5 were completely wiped out. The Council erased them from history. "Not this time," Henderson said grimly. "Download everything." The guards were breaking through their defenses now. Harris was hit and fell beside Henderson. "Download complete," Martinez said. "Transmitting to human intelligence now." Henderson nodded. "Set it to broadcast on all frequencies. Every species in the galaxy needs to see this." Martinez's fingers moved quickly one last time. "Broadcasting now. It's going everywhere." Just as the transmission began, the guards broke through the door. Henderson stood his ground, protecting Martinez and the equipment until the data was safely sent. The last message he sent to Earth Command was simple: "Truth revealed. The galaxy will know." Within hours, the complete Council archives were playing on communication devices across hundreds of worlds. The Council's darkest secrets were secrets no more. 6 months after Ambassador Miller's declaration of war, Captain Mary Lopes stood in the grand meeting hall of the space station Unity. The station floated in neutral space, built specifically for this historic day. Lopes was a short woman with black hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her blue uniform was decorated with the new insignia of the Galactic Covenant. Around her stood representatives from 17 former Council species. They had all withdrawn from the Galactic Council after seeing the evidence Lieutenant Henderson's team had broadcast. Now they were creating something new. "The document is ready for signing," announced Lopes, her voice calm despite the importance of the moment. One by one, the representatives came forward to sign the Charter of the Galactic Covenant. Humans were just one of 17 equal members. The Tellurians, Vastari, and Meridian Collective, the first 3 to break from the Council, were given places of honor. Even a few Xeraxians were present. After their government fell, many had joined the movement for change, horrified by what their leaders had done. The new covenant was built on different principles than the old Council. All members would have equal voice. Technology would be shared openly. And most importantly, developing worlds would be protected, not exploited. As the signing ceremony ended, Lopes looked out the huge windows at the stars beyond. She thought of all those who had sacrificed to reach this day. The crew of the U.S. Horizon, Lieutenant Henderson's team, thousands of others who had fought and died in the brief but intense war. Captain Lopes called Stephen Reed, the human ambassador to the new covenant. "It's time for the memorial service." Lopes nodded and followed him to another part of the station. Here, a wall of black stone had been installed. Carved into it were the names of those who had died bringing the truth to light. The names of the U.S. Horizon's crew were at the top. Lieutenant Henderson's team was listed in a place of honor. They would be proud, Reed said quietly as representatives from all 17 species gathered in front of the memorial. They changed the galaxy forever. Lopes nodded. And not just for us. For all the species still developing on their homeworlds. For all those who will join the stars in the future. The memorial service was simple but powerful. Each species had their own way of honoring the dead, and all were respected equally. When it was humanity's turn, Lopes stepped forward and placed a small Earth flag at the base of the wall. "For those who discovered the truth," she said, "and for those who made sure everyone heard it." After the service, Lopes returned to the bridge of her ship, the Unity. Named after the space station, it was the first vessel built by the combined efforts of all Covenant species. It was a diplomatic ship, designed for peaceful missions, not war. On her display screen, a message appeared from Earth Science Division. A new civilization had been discovered, developing on a planet 30 light-years away. They had just invented radio and were sending their first signals into space. Under the old Council, such a discovery would have led to exploitation or experiments. Under the Covenant, it meant something very different. "Set course for Earth," Lopes ordered her crew. "We need to prepare a first contact team. One that will respect these people's development and only offer help if they ask for it." As the Unity moved away from the station, Lopes looked at a small photo on her console. It showed the crew of the U.S. Horizon, taken just before their final mission. Captain Morin smiled at the camera, not knowing she would soon make a discovery that would change everything. "We did it," Lopes whispered to the image. "We created something better." In the decades that followed, the Galactic Covenant grew and evolved. More species joined. Peaceful exploration replaced exploitation. The corrupt Council became a dark chapter of history that all species studied to ensure such mistakes were never repeated. And it had all begun with a shocking moment when one human stood before an arrogant council and declared war.